like to welcome Steve Hall from Australia. Steve,
Hi, Steve.
do you know
Oh, good.
Bill?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we've known each other for a long time. Hey, beard's a bit longer, Bill,
I
now.
know. I'm in my caveman phase. I have doctor's appointments. I have got to go and get cleaned up. I can't present myself like this, but you know.
Yeah, I've let it go a little bit on my face, and yeah, it's all gone grey, and now it's getting itchy, and I don't know why I haven't cut it off. So I might cut it off tonight. I'm just about had enough of it. Really. It must be a bit late over there now.
Uh, Almost quarter to one in the morning.
Oh, good grief! It's two
No,
forty.
it's only quarter to 12. What are you talking about, Joe?
Well, it's quarter to one in the morning here.
No, it's still hot here anyway, so must be getting warmer over there for you guys anyway.
Um, well, here in Virginia, it's been like in the 80s.
Hmm.
This past week. I don't know what that translates to over there. I know you guys use centigrade. How about you, Bill? Has it been hot there?
April in the deep south. It's warm and rained all day. It's humid, not really oppressive though, not as bad as it can be. But I'm
Yeah.
I'm in Chattanooga, so we're upland, mountainous, so it's not nearly like it is in the flatlands in Georgia or Florida. That's just unbearable there.
We have a lot of pollen. Um, Everything is like yellow and green, and everybody's allergies in Virginia are like flaring up. It's everything is
Yeah.
just coated in pollen.
Well, I get sinus all the time, and as many sinus tablets I take, it doesn't work. So I get used to it after a while. Really, it just becomes a pain. So, but we've had rain here now, really, almost continuously for 3 weeks. So
Oh, goodness.
I mean, everything's wet, and now there's mosquitoes everywhere, and now the humidity is going up again, and yeah, and it's knocking me poor old dog Rusty around a little bit. So no, I mean she's losing her summer coat, so there's dog hair all over the place. So yeah, but no, everything's been going good. I listened in. It started about an hour ago or something like that. Just was watching what everyone had to say, and we were just talking about the documentaries, and the different directions they appear to be going in and things like that. But I think there was, it's only my opinion, I think there was a bit of a turn, like with the documentaries, probably about 3 or 4 years ago, when we people start doing YouTube, and then all of a sudden you've got people who are doing YouTube, and they're doing such fantastic jobs, and like Mike Brady, and quite a few others. And I look forward to seeing his YouTube videos there now. I did see him do one on the conspiracy thing there the other day, and I thought that was all right. I don't know where he gets all the information from, but he just seems to come up with something new all the time, and I think it's fantastic. So, and your Titanic channel videos or interviews, Bill, are over there in Northern Ireland, are they?
At least one of them is. When Titanic Channel closed shop, I lost touch with the company and with the intellectual property assets. So
Yeah.
I have no idea where they're. I think RMST actually purchased
Yeah.
them. Now that
Yeah.
I think of it.
Well, they were going to come down to Australia, and they were going to interview a few people down here, me and Daniel Clistorna, and Inga and a few others, but it seemed to have fallen over. But I do remember that the fellow who was running it, I can't remember what his name is. I mean, he gave me a free thing, so I could watch all of them anyway. And I remember watching them all, and I remember, I don't know, I think you've done about maybe, I don't know, 15 short videos, Bill. And I remember one about the pumps and what's in a name. Is that what you're talking about, Titanic?
Mhm.
What's in a name? I thought that was absolutely fantastic. And yeah, that was a great one. And I learned something from that. And other ones just talking about not the sanitary sort of things, but one bathroom and that, and where you could smoke, I think it was, and another one where you can buy somebody a present or something when they go on a cruise. You just buy them a box of chocolates or some flowers, and I remember thinking at the time, I mean, that's just incredible research. I don't know how you accumulate so much information. I know when you would have been doing the Titanic channel, we said we'll talk about this today, but it just seems to all come out, and you just make things really easy to understand. You don't overcomplicate things. So, and I saw all the other ones. Parks was doing some, and Ken Marshall, all of those people. I enjoyed all of them. I thought the channel was really good, but that brings me back to like what I was talking about with YouTube and people like Mike Brady and his Ocean Liner Designs or something like that. He's running it all on his own, but he just seems to be able to produce something. And when I look at it, and what surprises me, and I do talk to Mike occasionally, when I have a look at it, he's only had the video up for 12 hours or 24 hours or something. He's got 500,000 people have looked at it. And you think 500,000 people. And then I look at it and I think, what would be the viewing figures for a Titanic documentary? I mean, I don't know, but I don't know who the 500,000 people are who are watching it, whether they're enthusiasts. I just think sometimes you sign up to somebody's channel and every time they put a video up, I mean, you get a little notification or something, and somebody clicks on it, and I think it counts as one. But that's where it seems to be going, and also this comes back because you were involved with the Titanic Honor and Glory guys, as I was initially, and I think that's fantastic stuff too. And it seems to be where the future is. Looking at be able to walk through the ship and then watch all these videos online and free, and keep away from any sort of trying to draw in an audience or something like that. So. But what it reminds me of, Bill, and so I've rattled on long enough, but what this Titanic, where it is at the moment, what it reminds me of is watching documentaries on Jack the Ripper. It comes back to exactly the same thing. I mean, it's Kosminski, and now it's somebody here and somebody there, and they're inventing all these things, and they're all coming all together, and that and we don't know who Jack was, but it just reminds me. You've got World War II. And you've got Jack the Ripper and you've got Titanic, and they just seem like they're a magnet. And people just come in and watch them. I mean, I'm watching the World War II documentaries, things online. I can't think. Mark Felton, is it Mark Felton? I watch his stuff.
A great channel. He's a guy. He's
got a
really good channel.
I watch it all the time. Dan. And what surprises me, I have a look at the people who are watching it, and they're 10, 15, 20, 30 million people have actually come in and watched it, and people are moving away from television now too. I mean, I don't watch much television anymore. I don't want to watch. So, anyway, sorry, Joe. I was just rattling on.
You're fine. You can take over the show anytime you want to.
No. Sorry, I was just waiting for a friend to and go and visit, because it's just 35 years since his brother had passed away. And he was going to come around at 2:00. I got a message from him. We've had that much rain here. He's out on his farm, and his truck got bogged, so he can't get out. And his sister would come round too. So his sister's trying to pull him out, and she got bogged too.
Goodness.
Yeah, so they're both bogged. So we're not going up to the cemetery today, and that's why I'm here. Otherwise, I even picked some flowers for him too when on my walk today. The little flowers just on my walk, and I picked them up. So, I thought myself, because in the morning I like to have 2-strong coffees. I like to have a whiskey or something, or a tea, Maria.
For breakfast? What?
Yeah, just one. Yeah, just one warms me up. Just a
Oh,
sinus tablet, one little shot of whiskey, 2 cups of strong cup coffee, and a 2.5 kilometer walk.
all right.
And then it sets me up for the day. And then the sinus comes in. But so I didn't, and then maybe at lunchtime, but you know, I like to have a cigarette too, but you know, nothing's good for you, is it?
No,
No, you can't have a
bet
cigarette.
nothing
You
is good
can't
for
have
you.
any whiskey. You
Nothing at
can't,
all.
you can't take any Pantadine 40 or Digesic. And you can't do this. I mean, you can't seem to do anything lately, Can't
Mhm.
even eat eggs anymore, apparently, now. So, I don't know. Anyway, sorry, guys. Sorry, Bill.
You're
So you're
fine. In other news, Bill, you might be interested to know this. Okay, so I think I've told you I have that little Titanic Adventure at a Time Forever group, you know? I
Yeah.
was not expecting that to go anywhere. Now it's got almost 4,500 members in it. This
Oh,
little group is just popping all the time. People are like constantly in there. Oh my goodness, I can't, believe I found this group. This is amazing. I love this group. They're like constantly, posting little like hints and, I got my game to work on my Mac, or I got it to work on my phone, or I got it to work on my tablet, or, and they're constantly talking about how amazing Titanic Adventure at a Time is. And how they love wandering around the ship. And I mean, I am just amazed that people are still playing this game. It's like, you know,
well,
it
I
came
played
out
it
in
2 weeks. Played it two
19.
weeks ago.
You played it 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I knew nothing about it until about 5 years ago, when somebody said adventure out of time or whatever it was, and then somebody said, he said, well, you can download it from here, and then I put it on and I started playing it, and I thought it was really like it's really old type graphics to that, but it really draws you in. But what draws you in is the music,
Oh, the
and
music
I
just
didn't
gets
know
me
Bill
every
had
time.
something to do with it when it was done either. But the music draws you in.
Bill's over here giggling. He had a lot to do with it. He was the
Oh yeah,
historical
yeah.
contributor.
I saw
I
his
just
name on the credits at the
I
bottom there.
love it. I just absolutely love it.
Yeah, I like the Who's the
I
lady
die
spy?
every time because I start wandering.
you spend too much.
I just start wandering around and I'm like, do, what's behind this door and what's in this cabinet? And then I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, I'm out of time.
Unfortunately, um, I don't want to say I had problems with Cyberflix.
that's it.
And I understand what their business concerns were, but I was brought in as a consultant and they did not take me into their confidence.
Oh, Bill.
And, you know, I, I'll get people who ask me, well, if you worked on this, why are there quote unquote so many mistakes? One of them was the Turkish baths.
Oh yeah. But you said they did that before they brought you on though, didn't they?
Yeah, that was a problem. What happened was they really did not want to hire me. Um, I jumped through all their hoops. I turned in a resume and sample plans and outline of work. And well, we have our own expert, and the people higher up in the company thought that all. By the way, his name was Bill Broyles.
Mm-hmm.
All Bill Broyles had to do was just run down to the library and look up stuff. This is like in the 80s. Right. Yeah, you do that. You look that up.
Yeah, that's right.
And they went ahead and they actually started building their model in the cooling room in the Turkish bath. And the problem is that they built it off of Olympics plans, not Titanic's. So the room was completely wrong.
Yeah.
And when I finally got around to seeing the model, I said, you've built the wrong ship. And they said, well, we've built it, not building again. So that was the end of that. There were a couple of things along the way that very similar problems.
Have you actually played it, Bill?
No, I haven't, and I've got to tell you why. I could never get it to run on my computer, and that's when it was a new game. Now it is an old game, and I don't really have the technical savvy to put whatever patches are necessary to get it to work.
Now you can play it on oh, you don't even need the disc. What is it? Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
Steam.
Is it got yeah, Steam. You
Steam.
can just go, it's not quite as
I
there
never
are some,
played
like
the full version. I just played the demo disc
you can
version
play
because
yeah, you can do that on Steam.
it
It's like
was on
99
it was
cent.
in an Office Max and it was called The Lost Mission.
Hmm. You can do it on Steam. There's some glitches to it that you don't have with the disc, but you can still play it on Steam. Um, I just love it though. It's so unique. The purser, and I love messing with the guy up on the deck. It just
It's
irritates the
interesting
crap out
how
of
the
him.
movie. It's interesting, Joe, or guys, how the movie sort of hooked up. You know, like with the Nazis or something involved
Mhm.
because of painting or something, and it's supposed to be, and down there, and then all of a sudden, you know, that you had the movie that they made in 1942 or something like that.
Uh-huh.
So it seems whenever there's something evil going on, they seem to drag these guys in all the time, like in Indiana Jones. It's always them, you know. But
They're like
you
tailor
know,
made.
I don't know. It's just, yeah, but I enjoyed it, and yeah, so I played again. I like the girl who's the spy or something. I mean, I like, well, I can't remember what her name is. It's what was her name?
Um,
The fellow ran into her in the gymnasium or something like
are you
that.
talking
And
about Penny or
oh,
Georgia?
Penny something is a pair, Penny something like that. You know. Oh, what a sour good lady she was. You
John
think, oh,
Ferris is watching. He says it runs on his on. He says it runs on my Windows 98 laptop. So you heard
yeah,
it here, guys. If you still have a Windows 98 laptop, it will work.
yeah. Well, it
Um,
works on my Windows 8.
so
It
but
works
you
for
do have to have like a patch or something, like a emulator, to kind of it'll take over your computer, but it will work with that. If you go to my
oh,
group, we have all these little pinned posts at the top of the Titanic Adventure Out of Time Forever with the links of how to, download the emulator. Anyway, we're a bunch of nerds. It's great. Love it. Penny Pringle. That's right.
Penny Pringle. That's it. Penny Pringle. Penny
Um,
Pringle. Shoot,
They
that's a
don't
bit of a
use
Pringle too,
real
aren't you?
people in the
um,
game, right? They
John
changed.
Barris is giving me all the little names. He remembers
Penny
it.
Pringle.
I struggle.
They don't use any real historical people in the game, right? They change everybody.
Well, there's nobody like in the game that's from like the actual. There's just no historical figures at all. It's just for fun. Um, but I mean, it's interesting. The whole concept is interesting. Like the main character that you're playing, like he somehow gets transported, um, back to Titanic. Um, and his mission is to collect all these things, and somehow he can prevent like World War I and World War II, and
Yeah.
if he completes his mission.
So
Um,
Alpine Vistas, wasn't it? That
mm,
Austrian chap who painted Alpine Vistas.
mhm.
That's right. Yeah,
It's
that's right.
just it's such an interesting, but I have to be really careful in the game because people can't say Nazi or
Really?
anything like that, or they get dinged by the
You
censors.
can't
And
even see it on YouTube anymore.
oh really? Oh gosh, I
World
hope this
War
doesn't get
II
dinged.
documentaries.
Um,
Yeah.
I have to be careful, about what gets posted. But anyway,
You
it's
know,
all good.
I never understood this whole Voldemort thing. No, you can't say his name.
No, it's
Don't know who
crazy.
he
Even
is.
on YouTube now, they won't say like if a, a World War II documentary, they won't say like a lot of times they'll say a certain Austrian painter
Yeah,
or a failed Austrian painter or something, and
yeah, we have to be. I have to be careful what goes in the group and what doesn't. I'm like, oh, because it'll get flagged, and I'm like.
it's burying the heads in the sand. I don't get it.
But it's just really neat how active that group is and how people are still so excited about it. Like last weekend, I don't know what
Like
happened last weekend, but
stories
I
too,
approved
don't
over like
they?
100 people. I was like, what is going on?
People
Um,
have written like stories about it too, like
oh, I know people
fan
write like
fiction.
fan fiction, like alternate ending stories, and like online they have like little blog like alternate ending stories and I don't
What
know.
I can I just bring up too, Joe? I did read on one of the groups there that one of the fellas from Encyclopedia Titanica, one of the moderators, passed away. Was it Mark Baber? I think it
I
was
think so.
Mark. And
I
that
think it was.
and that name had been around as long as I'd been around, as long as it's been online with that. And I had some interactions with him over a period of time, but somebody had directed or the readers to some obituary, and I had a look at it, and I was quite surprised. He was a judge, and he was this, and he was that. He's a really intellectual guy, and all of a sudden he had this great fascination with Titanic. So Titanic seems to draw everyone in.
It does. It really
And
does.
it's you'd be surprised. I've had a few dealings with a few people. And this was only mainly because, just like through the books and that, because there were certain people, and the publisher will send a letter or send a message, and it depends on whose name's at the top of it. So say Bruce.
Mm-hmm.
Say, oh, Bruce has got his name's first on it, not my name or whatever it was. And you get a letter from some famous musician or something like that saying, I love the book, can I get a signed copy? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't mention any names, but it comes through every now and then. Politicians, American politicians, English politicians, French. It's unbelievable how many high profile people have an interest in Titanic. But I mean, obviously they don't talk
Mm-hmm.
about it, but it's good they buy the book anyway. So sorry,
Um,
Joe.
no, it's fine. I agree with you. People from all walks of life are interested in, in Titanic. And that's
All
something,
over the world too.
um, yeah, it's something that I tried to kind of highlight in the club that I did at school, the club that I sponsored, the shipwreck club. When I got special speakers to come, in through Zoom to speak to the students, I tried to get people who were who came from all backgrounds. Like I had Jen Saletti speak, and she's like a high profile lawyer. She's like a public defender, and she's also a ship's captain, and she likes to dive on ships, and she's interested in you know shipwrecks. Like she's been to Britannic and Lusitania, and they dive on ships. And then I've had other people speak who've done who do other things other than go to shipwrecks. Um, so I
What do
try
the
to.
kids? What do the
Hmm?
kids normally ask you, Joe? I mean, you
Um,
go out and talk to the kids. What questions do they
what
ask
do
you?
they ask like the speakers and stuff?
Well,
Hmm.
Um,
what do they ask? It's
like they ask kind of like how do they get into, what they're doing, what kind of
yeah,
education they need, you know,
yeah,
um, what is the most like if they have been to a shipwreck, what was the most interesting thing they saw, or
yeah,
what's the most moving thing they saw, or I had Louis Abernathy speak to him, and I thought they were going to ask about like Leonardo DiCaprio or something. I was just waiting for it to come, but they didn't. They asked him about the shipwrecks and stuff like that. They didn't ask him about any kind of movie stuff. They're like he talked about the Bismarck and stuff like that, and they asked him about Bismarck and Titanic, and he was talking about a shipwreck that he would like to see sometime, and so they ask about that, and photography, and directing and stuff like that. They ask about like I had this guy Mark Corbett speak to the shipwreck club one time. He does a lot of diving off of the Outer Banks. So they ask about the what you have to wear when you're a diver, the scuba gear and rebreathers and stuff like that. And how you have to get certified, and the students were just really interested in the whole process of how you get involved in shipwrecks. Um, stuff like that. And so my message to them was, follow your dreams. There's a whole big world out there to explore. I think this generation kind of limits their, their world, to, their community. I think, I just want them to know there's just so much more out there. That was my whole purpose with the Shipwreck Club, follow your dreams. There's so much more. And so I wanted the speakers to bring pictures and, show where they've been, show what's out there. Because there's so much left to look at. When you look at what's been explored in the oceans, there's still so much more that hasn't been. So I'm like, go learn, explore, find things that haven't been found.
Maybe one of them will find the Californian finally.
Maybe, you
Right.
never know.
Before we get too far away from Adventure Out of Time,
Mhm.
I was pulling up some drawings.
Mhm.
This
Oh.
came up the other day. I thought maybe I should put them all together if you don't mind. Can you
Sure.
let me show pictures?
Oh, here, yeah.
Yeah.
Share screen. Let's see. Multiple participants. Let's see. Whoa, I didn't mean to do that. Okay.
Do you want to know something? I already have privileges.
Yeah, I was gonna say you should be able to.
Yeah.
Ooh, there we go.
Okay, now we should be looking at a picture of it's a screenshot of the of a bed.
Yep,
Is that what everybody's seeing?
I do see that.
Okay, very good. What happens is one of the packages that I turned in was for A21. And the original photographs for this cabin were lost. So the original Harland and Wolff negatives are not available, the high definition ones. But it was reproduced in a few places, including Shipbuilder. And when you look at the photographs, it looks as though the head of the bed is decorated with ox skulls. And that's what shows up in this Adventure Out of Time capture. And there was a certain amount of speculation whether or not this had anything to do with a cross promotion of Dust, which was the next thing that Cyberflix came out with, like an Easter egg.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, no. Here is a copy of the image of what I sent, so that their artists could copy it. And here is the image as it exists in the halftones. This is from Shipbuilder. Now, a lot of people say, well, isn't that awfully weird, having ox skulls on furniture? And not really, not for 1912. They were very classically minded people, and ox skulls with garlands is actually pretty popular in Greek decoration. So even though that's what I believe it is, it's not all that odd at all for the period. Now, when Jim Cameron got into the wreck, I was very excited that we would finally be getting pictures that were clear enough to confirm yes or no. And unfortunately, no. The images just, this is just something I grabbed out of my big pile of stuff. But this is the way this particular style of headboard looks like today. He doesn't get close enough, not that I saw. I hope to go through his archives again very soon. I will definitely be keeping my eyes open, but boy, I don't know at this stage. I don't know.
That's really interesting.
Bill, can I ask you a question, Bill?
Sure.
You remember about 2 years ago, I worked out how much all the people on the Titanic would have weighed. and it was a long time ago, and I worked it out from railway figures how many bums to the ton there are. Then I worked out how many people are on Titanic. Then I could work out how much everyone on Titanic weighed, including the crew. And then I think you asked me a question, with all of those people on it, how much would the ship have sunk down a little bit like at Southampton? And I meant to get round to say to you how much what it was. I think I only ever replied because you said, oh, Steve, how much do you think that the weight of the people would have brought the ship down, the draft on it? And I said to him, I thought probably about 4 inches. The weight of the people. I thought the weight of all the humans and all the passengers, everyone on the trip, when you put them on the ship at Southampton, that would have brought the ship down 4 inches. But I'm not sure whether I actually said it. So how much do you think the weight brought it down for the passengers and
Well,
crew?
at ordinary drafts, at the normal waterline, that's a better way to put it.
Yeah.
It takes 144 tons added weight to make the Titanic sit 1 inch lower in the water.
144 ton.
Right.
Okay. Yep.
So if you have the total amount in long tons and just divided it up by 144, that will be the amount of the extra displacement, the extra.
Yeah, because really, I mean, if you add up all the weight of everyone on board, I mean, I don't think it'll even come up to 144 ton, would it really? I'm not really even sure. I'd have to look at what I done 2 years ago. I worked out what the tonnage would be. But I just remember vaguely what the saying was in Railway Palace was 16 bums to the ton. So that's should be able to just take the 16 into how many people and passengers and crew were on it, and then that would give us a figure. And
what was total number of people on board?
That's right. I'm not too sure how many people were on it.
Well, let's say anybody.
Yeah, was it about 3,000?
Well,
on board what, Titanic?
Yeah.
How many people and passengers and crew? How many was it?
Wasn't it?
Well, I'll tell you what. I've already run the numbers.
Wasn't it like 2,300?
Okay. Well, if it's 3,000, then the average weight would be 107 pounds per person.
Yeah.
Which is light, but it's it's a reasonable figure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I shall work it out later on. So with everyone on board, it wasn't significant.
No, not really.
No.
People get a very, very strange ideas about numbers when they start talking about ships in a field they're not into. For instance, you mentioned the thing I did about pumps for Titanic channel. People just imagine Titanic had these vastly enormous pumps, and it's like no, that their actual ability to move water was quite limited. Aside from the circulating pumps, the bilge and the ballast pumps, they hardly move anything at all because they're just maintenance pumps. They're really not bulk dewatering pumps, and there's no piping that leads from the circulating pumps to the bow area, and nothing can be rigged because they would have to be 36 inches in diameter, and that's a phenomenal piece of piping. So it just that was that. The pumps were never going. As a matter of fact, I think Jim Cameron even alludes to it in those few moments of panic when they're discovering, and Esme says, well, what about the pumps? And Andrews just turns to, they just buy you minutes.
Yeah, it's a great scene.
Yeah.
Because people often turn around and say, oh, well, how about if we just sort of, toss over or cut away the three anchors at the front of the ship, including the chain,
Yeah.
Well, that's the same thing. It's going to buy you minutes. The amount of water coming in, it's insignificant. So
Exactly. I think I had to work this out for Lusitania. But I think the water ingress per open porthole was like 1.75 tons a minute.
yeah,
Jeez.
something like that.
And Lusitania has a very similar tons per inch immersion. So let's say 140.
Mm.
It doesn't take long
No,
before you swamp the vessel simply by having open portholes.
no, no, for
As a matter
sure.
of fact, I've got to tell you, I think
Mm.
I've mentioned this before publicly. That's one of the reasons why I don't do work with research anymore on Lusitania anymore. I honestly think the ship was lost because the portholes were left open, and
Yeah,
there was sufficient flooding through those open portholes to lose the ship. But the problem is that is not a an answer that can be merchandised.
yeah.
You can't make something sexy by saying they left the windows open.
Leave the windows open. Yeah,
Yeah.
too much water came in. That's true. Do you think it was a factor with the Britannic bill?
I'm less familiar with Britannic. I don't feel comfortable really issuing much of uh, a statement about that.
Yeah.
I always felt that every wreck needs to be studied, and honestly, Titanic consumes so much of my thinking day that I really just go, somebody else's circus, somebody else's monkeys.
That's an old Polish saying, isn't it? So
Yeah, I've
is it a
heard.
Polish?
Yeah.
It is an old Polish saying. It's somebody, not my monkey, not my circus. I
Mhm.
think it's a Polish. I think it's an old Polish saying. I think.
Yeah, I've heard
Because I
it
married one.
credited to that, but it's one of those
Mm.
things that goes to everybody. It's clever, and that's how
Well,
the internet is awarding the prize right now.
that's right, Bill. I married one.
So not to change the subject, but to change the
All right.
subject.
Yeah. Sorry, John.
So my friend John Beers mentioned to me that I should have mentioned this earlier. And I should have put it in current events. I just didn't think about it. Because it's a cruise ship and it kind of like sometimes escapes my whole realm of thinking. But it is a Cunard ship. Um, so the Queen Anne set sail on her maiden voyage,
Right.
May the 3rd. Can you guys see that? There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's the Queen Anne. And she has room for 2,996 guests, 1,225 crew. She's 1,058 feet long. So that is what a modern day Cunard ship looks like. Just not
Doesn't
quite
look
as
too bad.
pretty as like Titanic and Olympic.
No, but it does look too bad. Does it?
I don't know. It's not as bad as some of the other cruise ships that I've seen. I mean, you know,
No, I think it looks all right.
it's all right.
Doesn't look too bad. Look, I think it comes back to that it's got to make money, and you've got to build something like that, and to get people in to make the money. I mean, I don't know. I mean, how many people are going to get sail if Titanic was here today? How many people would turn around and sign up for that? I don't know. Maybe the first couple of voyages.
And this is interesting. On the Cunard website, it says Queen Anne's breathtaking interiors take inspiration from our past to define a striking new design direction in our future. So apparently they have added some classic designs to the interior to kind of appeal to people who liked some of the more, I guess, classic kind of look. I don't know.
The name. Now, I went through this 12 years ago, 10 years ago. You might be interested in this, Bill. When I was working on a different project, I asked Lloyd's Registry, I said, if we build another boat, is there any reason why we can't call it RMS? And he got back to me within a few hours, and he said, it is possible to name a ship today RMS. And this is from Lloyd's Registry. So if you build another Titanic, you could register it and have the prefix at the front RMS. So how's that? That's very surprising. So that's just something might be interesting. But yet you've got these new Cunard ships, and I don't know. There's no RMS anymore, is there? Ships ain't called RMS anymore? I don't think so.
Never heard of it.
Haven't heard
Yeah.
of it.
No, there's no more RMS. It's not RMS, Queen, whatever it was. But I was surprised that when I was working on that the word came through that if you had another Titanic and you wanted to prefix it as RMS, it was possible to be able to do that. So
I think that the legal loophole is the abbreviation RMS is
Yes.
technically part of the name,
yes,
so that when it alphabetizes within a computer, it's
Yeah.
not under Titanic, it's now under R,
yes,
as opposed to the classical era from 1912,
yeah,
where it's a nomenclature distinction. The name of the ship is Titanic and
Yes.
nothing else. And then it gets the prefix. It's like, post-nominals.
yes. Well, actually, that comes back to one of those videos you done with Titanic Channel. You're talking about RMS. I've got a good memory, Bill. You were talking about RMS, TSS, or SS.
Yeah.
And that the name of the ship, which it was given at the time was built, would remain always constant. And then here it goes. Look, here comes a memory. And that's why the lifeboats had SS Titanic on it and not RMS Titanic. So therefore, then you wouldn't have had to change the nameplates on the lifeboats. If it lost the RMS title, it would still be SS Titanic, and it could be. But you know what's funny about this? They say TSS, triple screw ship. But if it's got two propellers, it could still be twin steamship, couldn't it, Bill?
Yeah, I've got to say that all of these prefixes,
Yes.
with the exception of RMS, HMS, they're not really defined legally. They're all just sort of courtesy titles, and you'll see enormous variations in these abbreviations for groundbreaking ships like Lusitania.
Yes.
You'll see TSS for turbine steamship, and then you'll see QSTS, quadruple screw turbine ship, and there's a whole gambit of them. I have a file that they just come up because you're able to coin whatever it is you'd like to use as long as there's no legal implication like RMS. That is a legal connotation. So it's I gotta say I get a little bothered about people who will wring their hands on Facebook over these true minutia.
Minutia.
This is not,
Minutia. Great word.
this is not like a verb conjugation.
No.
French, your verb ending has to be right. Is that important?
No.
But it really there's no governing body that sits in judgment or doles out penalties. You called your ship the wrong name.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. So no, it's always it's just quite interesting because I know that you've been involved, Bill, on one side of research, and we all know what areas that you've been involved. Fantastic. And I've been involved in different directions with writing and doing other things, maybe trying to build another one. But I did ask a few questions at the time and I did ask that if you built another Titanic today and you put modern propellers on it, you built exactly the same ship. and you put modern propellers on Titanic in 1912, propellers designed in 2024, would Titanic have gone faster? And the answer is yes. And it comes back, if a bulbous bow, would that have helped Titanic in 1912? Because I'm not too sure. When was the first bulbous bow? Wasn't I'm trying to think. It wasn't. Geez, did the Yamato and the Masachi have bulbous bows on them? I can't remember. I think they did.
The earliest application of bulbous bows for
Yeah.
large steamships were the Bremen and the Europa.
It was on them. Okay.
The whole bulbous bow was developed by Admiral D.W. Taylor. He was an American, obviously a naval admiral, who did a great deal of work with the bulbous bow to reduce resistance. And I think he was active, say in the 1915 era. That's where the foundations were laid. And then it took until the 20s to where the designs reached a point of maturity that, the Germans were willing to take a gamble on it. And then Yorkovich took the concept and changed a couple of parameters. And that's why you have the Yorkovich hull on the Normandy. So that would basically be the timeline. I'd say he probably got busy about 1915.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So
it's always good to ask another historian.
So in
just
terms
some
of naked possibility, yeah, I mean, Titanic from 1912 actually could have been built with a bulbous bow, but you would never be able to talk British companies into doing that. I mean, the Queen Mary was built in 1936, and the first Elizabeth, 1945. Well, make it 1940. Sorry. They still have essentially plumb bows, not too different from what they were using on Lusitania, Mauritania. And Cunard at the time, John Brown and Cunard in 1936, they were getting a lot of questions. Well, the Normandy has this, and the Bremen and the Europa have the same thing. Why don't you? And they got rather defensive, and they felt, well, they said we didn't feel that I'm trying to remember the exact words. They didn't think it was worth the effort. The savings, the money savings, was not worth the effort. And of course, I don't think so. I mean, it took over the industry.
Yeah.
Once bulbous bows became established, that was that. Everybody was using them. Absolutely.
Well, Titanic had one. It wouldn't have fit in the dry dock of Belfast, would it?
Yeah. And that may have been a consideration.
Well, if you and I, Sauder and Hall, were building a dry dock at Belfast in 1908, the biggest possible ship that you'll be thinking to yourself is going to be no more than 850, 860 feet. You could not imagine building one 900, 950. I mean, it would have been hard to dig a little bit more out about the end. But the other thing is let me ask you a question. And I mean, I don't know how many people listening to us two old historians talking, whatever it was. Well, we're talking about the windlass and all those things being painted green. What do you think about that, Bill?
I do not have any opinions about colors. I have several
Yeah.
reasons for that. If I need to know a color, I just call Ken Marchand. He tells me.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I have a great escape clause. The other thing is, before I got into exhibits, I actually studied art to become an animator. So there was, I had a lot of color theory, and the fact of the matter is, I've never been able to figure out a way to discern colors just from gray values.
Yeah.
Could be just,
No, this
or it could be
don't
a
do it.
color, or it could be a specific gloss. A lot of people don't realize that there is no standardization of any kind with the paint. And
Oh.
some items are painted gloss black, and some are painted flat black. And just that reflectivity
Yeah.
throws the
Yeah.
apparent value off.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, this was something Ken Marshall told me. I was absolutely blown away.
Yeah.
On the Cunard ships like Lusitania, the black parts, the funnels, and the hull are gloss black,
Yes.
but the Cunard red in the funnels, it's painted. It's flat,
Flat.
whatever reason, and
Oh,
so that explains a lot of stuff, including all the weird staining in
yes.
early pictures of Lusitania and Mauritania, usually the ones where there are trials, where they have these incredible discolorations. Flat paint picks up discoloration and holds it and shows it off. And there aren't enough coats of paint on the funnel to help ameliorate the local discoloration. So anyway, that's where that goes.
Thanks for that. That's interesting. I did speak to Daniel Clistorna. I remember in the video, I think you called Daniel Danny. Can't remember. Daniel? Can't remember. It's going back in my mind. It's maybe too far. I said to Daniel one day, I said, "No, listen, Daniel." I said, Bob Red, you know Bob Red. Now, Bob Red's arguing about the fact that board on the back of the Titanic, it's not red. So red with white writing. He said, like, stay clear of the propellers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember that. Now, to me, my opinion, when I look at it, to me, I can't understand black, white, whatever it was, because there's something lost in how the photos are taken, like what you said. To me, I would have thought it was red. That's only my opinion. But he's put a good case forward for it being sort of black. But Daniel said, and we were doing Titanic in photographs, and we were doing some research on some bits and pieces at the time. I can't remember what it was. We're talking about the Olympic coming back to Belfast in October, after whatever it was. And I said to him, Daniel, I said, you know enough about all this stuff. Can't you tell me what colour this was and this colour was? He said, Steve, I can't tell you. He said, from a black and white photo, I can't tell you whether it's red, green, blue, or whatever it was. And I said, why is that? He said, because it's the way the photo was taken. You know, so what colour things were back then, I've got no idea. So
yeah,
I wish I knew, but I don't know.
The last thing I'd say about color like that, it's rabbit hole time.
Yeah, it is. It's Alice in
Wind
Wonderland.
up with all sorts of, frankly, fruitless discussions about stuff. You can't prove it. You can look at it, you can make a decision. Now, people will kind of hammer on the propeller sign, whether it's red or black. And I've had a lot of discussion, especially with computer modelers. This came up many times in Honor and Glory. And Matt DeWinkler and I would talk about color. Could we do this? Could we do that? And I said, essentially, there's no documentation. There's no way to discern. Do what looks aesthetically best. Because when you actually get on board their model, you realize that everything on board the ship is either white or black. And because those were two very cheap paints. And so everything got painted white or black. And there was always, I shouldn't include myself. They were always looking for just, can we please put something in besides those two colors? The other thing I want to point out is sometimes I'll appeal to what I would call performing tradition. You know, when you do an opera, you usually wind up acknowledging what the composer and the previous people have done, but there's also something called a performing tradition where maybe there's a piece of stage business, a look or gesture that doesn't appear anywhere, but it's always been done that way. And so it has achieved a certain position within the tradition of the opera. And when you get to things like, is the propeller sign red or black? It's been red for so long. And the evidence, I mean, I can see white lettering on black. I truly can. But it's just always been done that way. And so it is basically what I would call a knowing mistake.
Yeah.
Where you know that you've made a mistake, or you may have made a mistake, or you can't rigorously prove that it is correct. But this is the way it's always been done. And the last thing I can just say about color, real quick, boy, for someone who had nothing to say about color, I want to talk about color.
That's all right.
Oh boy, now I've gone off on a tangent.
It's a good one though.
Okay, well, it'll come back to me in a second. So,
Color is controversial always.
The thing about drifting, you know, once you start questioning this thing, then everybody, the herd, wants to question everything. And we had a debate for the last 3 years. What was the color of the lighthouse? On each side of the ship are running lights. One is red, one is green. Where does the color come from? It comes from a mask, the Fresnel lens, that goes over, and it creates a specific frequency of red and a specific frequency of green.
Yeah.
Now, the vision, there's a cone of vision where you have to be able to see that starboard light at 0 right off the head and nothing to port.
That's right.
And then you have to go, I think it's 2 points abaft the beam. So about 115 degrees past the beam and no more. So what happens is there is something called a lighthouse box, which is built around the running light, and it's got baffles, so that green light is going in exactly that direction and no farther. Traditionally, the question came up, well, what color is the interior of the lighthouse box? And from everything I've been able to find out, commercial ships paint that box the color it needs to be. Green on one side, red on the other.
Yeah.
And the feeling is that what you're doing is you have a light, and there is going to be some light scatter. By painting it that color, it helps reinforce that light. The thing is, a lot of people turned around and said, well, how do you know it's red and green? How do you know it's not gray or black? You know, it overturns the apple cart just on the basis of a supposition. I did look into it, by the way, and I have found good evidence that warships frequently have no color painted in.
Oh, no color.
That the broadcast color is only coming from the lens.
On the line. Yeah.
And it becomes obvious why they do it. First of all, if you put a high chroma paint, it draws attention to itself. And during wartime, warships are not obliged to have running lights. So you turn those lights off. You want to be sure that there is nothing that can be seen coming out of that lighthouse area. But you know, it gets very chatty, and are you sure? And how do you know? And so I just, you know, I never publicly participated in that conversation because I never felt it was going to go anywhere.
Oh,
You
I
know,
feel like because I'm Phil Sauder and I know.
what's that?
I said if somebody asked me how, if I was you and somebody asked how do you know, I would be like, because I'm Phil Sauder.
Bill Sauder said so.
Um, okay, so my friend Jorge is watching from Chile. He's like, the real controversy is to tell how a white star is what color white star buff is.
What color it is? It looks like custard with too much milk in it. That's what color I think it is. Yeah.
I remember that
Look
always being a controversy. People are constantly like, that's not white star buff. That's not white star buff. I mean, there just is really no way to know what white star buff is because there's nothing left of the funnels that had the white star buff on it.
at
So there's just really no way to verify exactly what it was, right? Am I right?
Ken Marshall is
Kim
offered.
Marshall knows.
Well, that depends on what you define as no.
Oh, well, because he's Ken Marshall and he knows.
Ken Marshall has come to a conclusion, and this is the conclusion I use.
Okay.
And it is, you know, I think it's reasonable.
Hmm.
And he's gone through as many available historical records as survive. And this is the conclusion. Keep in mind that Victorians used color words differently than we do. Their palette was different than ours. Of course, they saw the same pictures we do, but the same images we do, the same colors. But they had a tendency to favor certain words that have fallen out or they've shifted in meaning, like stone is a very, very common paint descriptor in 19th century. But the question becomes what shade of stone? Because manufacturers have different ideas. Some of them favor gray. Some of them favor dark yellow. So yeah, I have whole I have whole files of 19th century paint chips. You know, and it's specifically for that reason because when you see something and it says heliotrope, you know, we still have that color heliotrope, but is it the right one? And you, of course, you wind up the most famous problem is with Kinnard red, which is really what we would call today international orange. It's not red at all. But the problem is orange has no cachet.
No.
And so we call it Kinnard red when it's really vermilion. I think that would be the safest.
Yeah, vermilion. Yeah, vermilion is orange. Yeah. Yeah, vermilion.
I mean, when I was working as a curator on the Queen Mary, it gave me kittens. It gave me kittens because I had to argue with everybody above me. Well, it's Kinnard red. Yes, it is, but it's not. And I don't have the thing memorized right now, but we use a lot of incorrect terminology in English. You know, like pineapple. It doesn't come from a pine tree, and it isn't an apple, but we call it a pineapple. Or even worse, sweet butter. They don't put sugar in the butter, they hold the salt. And the lack of the salt makes sweet butter taste, quote unquote, sweet. Buttermilk. There's no butter in buttermilk.
No.
Buttermilk is what is left of the milk after the butter has been taken out. So it is a naturally low calorie meal or milk. But people panic, especially when the anti-fat in food craze took over in the 90s. When everybody was going, I have to remove all the fat from my diet, so I'm not having buttermilk.
Hmm.
And so buttermilk sales crashed. And then, out comes the marketing department, fat-free buttermilk. Well, buttermilk is naturally fat-free, or not fat-free, but very low fat. Anyway, I've made my point.
No, that's like that old Irish song. Buttermilk during the week and whiskey on a Sunday. Irish Rovers, I think it was. What? I think it was anyway. So anyway, look, while we're talking, Bill, somebody asked a little while ago there, could third class send a message via the Marconi?
Not easily,
No,
but
I
it's
didn't.
definitely, do you have money? Yes, you
Yeah, I
can
got
do it.
money. Yeah.
I would imagine what would happen is if there was some sort of urgent need to communicate,
Yes.
somebody in third class could go to their assistant purser. Remember, there's
Yes.
only one purser, everybody else is his assistant. The one in charge of third class, and say, so and so, I need to tell so and so such and such. And out comes the forms, and they collect their shillings, and it goes up and it gets sent. So the short answer is yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine that too. Now that you've talked about that, I think you talked about, didn't the people would save up all the money they got in tips and waited till the exchange rate was right when they were at a certain port. So then when the exchange rates was high for all the coins they had, they could turn them in and get more money. I think I remember, was that somebody else? I can't
No, that
remember it.
that may have been me because I have used that publicly. And
Yes.
the person I mean the group I'm thinking of are um the the minor stewards on board, the boys.
With the kids. Yeah.
Because what happened is um you would have people that hold doors open for you, or deliver your telegrams, or run messages for you. And it was customary to tip them, and it was always an inconsequential tip because they were young,
Yes.
and it was not a great service, but they did do you some service.
Yes.
And John Maxton Graham actually tells this story. It's in The Only Way to Cross. They would hoard their different pocket change and watch the exchange rate in the bank. And of course, he's thinking of in the 50s on the Queen liners. That's the context, that's the underlying context. So you're watching it, and when the franc goes up or the franc goes down is when you decide, okay, I'm gonna cash in my franc chips. So that's how I understand the story.
That's just interesting.
By the way, the nice thing about John Maxton Graham is I don't consider him a primary source, because when you read the Only Way to Cross, you realize it is actually a very careful crib of Basil Wound's Frantic Atlantic, written in the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stories that he's
crossover.
borrowed and he's incorporated. Of course, he had a way with words that was just unmatched. But you can see where his source material was. But the reason why I'm giving him a primary source adjacent rating is he did travel several times on board these ships, the Queen liners, in the at least in the 50s and possibly earlier. And my point is, he was there, and he was astute enough to keep his recollections specific and compartmentalized. Because I'll tell you, I've done a lot of interviews with people who have traveled on board ships. And the worst interviewees are the people who traveled a lot. Because if you traveled the North Atlantic once, you remember every detail. You travel 50 times, it's like staying in a hotel or traveling in an elevator. They're all the same. One of my bigger problem children was, this was again when I was curator on the Queen Mary, was Jack and Benita Rather. Jack Rather was the millionaire that built Walt Disney's hotel next to Disneyland. But the thing is, it wasn't Walt's, it was built with Jack's money. So it's actually Jack's hotel, but he used the name. And the thing with Jack and Benita is they traveled a lot. And I interviewed them. When I first met them, I thought, well, here's a great resource for new, and because you're always looking for something new. And they were on board the Queen Mary and the Queen Elizabeth, and they just la 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 la. And then I got to talking to them, and I discovered two things. The first was they only traveled on the Queen Mary once, and they traveled on the Elizabeth dozens of times, many times. And a lot of what they were remembering was the wrong ship. And the other thing was they were not afraid of embellishing things in the wrong way. I kind of had this ongoing wrestling match with Mrs. Rather because she always wanted to make everything look sleek and modern. And she's running a hotel, and believe me, I'm very sympathetic to how even old stuff, when it's kept in first class condition, still looks like old stuff. But she did a lot of things that I thought crossed the line. And I talked to her, politely, respectfully, because after all, she is a multimillionaire and she is my boss. And she, I think, kind of was getting to the end of her rope with me. And she said in great confidence, Bill, I understand. But in the 50s, we were young. We didn't recognize bad taste when we saw it. And it's like, okay, that was it.
Yeah.
And my strategy became one of defense. Mrs. Rather's coming, hide everything. Because if she sees something she likes, it's going to disappear and it's going to get reupholstered.
Mhm.
That's interesting, Bill. Thank you. That's great.
That is really interesting.
I enjoy listening to. Well, I like to listen to people who know more than I do. So
Thank you.
thank you, Bill. You're a good mate. You know what you're doing, and I think you're top of the tree, mate.
Thank you.
That's right.
It is 2:00 in the morning here in Virginia.
Sorry, Joe.
No, please don't be sorry. I have enjoyed this immensely. But we're probably gonna have to wrap up because I'm not gonna want to get up tomorrow or today.
Or today.
Whatever it is.
Today.
Whenever it is. But this has been so much fun. We will have to do this again soon. Bill, I want to thank you for joining us. It was great to talk to you about like everything, especially your perspective on the documentaries. Same thing for you, Steve. We just really appreciate it. Both of you guys are always welcome on the 401. And we'll have to get together and do like another a deep conversation sometime. We'll pick a topic and discuss sometime maybe.
Always plenty to talk about.
There is always plenty to talk about, believe it or not. But anyway, this has been great. We will get together soon. If there's anybody out there and you would like for us to talk about a specific topic, please feel free to reach out to Dan or I, or message us on the main page. Any closing thoughts for anybody? Bill, Steve, Dan?
No, but thanks you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for coming on,
Thank-
Steve.
All right, thank you. Always enjoy listening in. It's easy for me because it's always in the afternoon. And, I always like Titanic, always have liked Titanic. So more Titanic, Joe. And if you want to sort something out in the next couple of weeks or something like that, just give us a heads up and we'll come in and perhaps get a few questions from the viewers.
All right. Thanks, you guys. Thanks, Dan.
All
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Bill.
All
Thanks
right,
for all of our viewers. Thank you guys for hanging in with us. We will
All right.
see you again soon on the 401.
All
Have
right,
a
good night, everyone.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, nighty night. Bye bye. Cheers,
Bye.
guys.